Hey Outlaws, and welcome back to another video where we're talking about swords and history. The last one we did with the 3,000-year-old bronze sword did really well, as has the Odachi sword that we covered, the giant Japanese sword that was discovered not too long ago. This channel's Outlaws. We don't follow rules, so it's my channel. I'm going to cover it, but I'm going to keep covering anime and other stuff too. Don't worry. All right, so recently, I think like a day ago or something close, a Viking sword from a warrior's grave unearthed in family's yard in Norway. Now, right off the back, Viking sword, warrior's grave. The actual artifacts found within, and I don't think it's a grave because when I looked into it, there's no skeletal remains, but there were lots of artifacts that showed possibly someone was buried here, or it was transferred away from a grave. I'm not too sure. And they also believe it could have been a mounted warrior at the time as well, due to the glass beads, the display of animals on the belt buckle, the bronze belt buckle, and other objects. Now, before we get started, though, too deep into this, I'm also going to explain a little bit about what Viking means, or Vikingur, or Vikingar. There's different pronunciations of it. I am very much American, Scottish-Irish American, because, you know, I got the brown hair and the red beard. Touch me lucky charms. Ugh. So anywho's, so I will pronounce everything as correctly as I can, and I have quite a bit of interest in the paganism and also Norse mythology and Norse belief as well. Hello, you. Keep in mind though that most stories that you guys know about Norse mythology came from Christian writers. Okay, way after the fact of the Viking Age, and most Vikings. Their culture and heritage, their writings were usually pretty much relegated to, let me pull it up for you, stones, such as this right here, and also the runes that are transcribed on it. So unfortunately, any writings, whatnot, were destroyed by the church long ago, and then the church wrote their own versions of it. So oftentimes when you read something like Norse mythology, it's way off. But anyways, I'm getting off topic. Let's get back into this. So a man was digging in his yard to build an extension of his house in southern Norway, unearthed a 1,100-year-old grave of a Viking warrior who was buried with weapons. Now, before we continue again with the Viking, now what does the word Viking really mean? Viking, some people say, oh yeah, it's a group of guys specifically called Vikings. Just hard, tough, unstoppable warriors, blah, blah, blah. If they were unstoppable, they would still be around, or at least their culture would still be around. Unfortunately, their cultural heritage was eventually wiped out. Some by their own kind, also by a lot of help from Christians, too. Now, don't get your panties in a bunch, Christians. I'm not coming to attack you. I'm just telling you how it is and what happened. So, embrace it. It's history. Anyways, so the word of it generally means a Vikingur was someone who went on expeditions, usually abroad, usually by sea, and usually in a group with other Vikingar, the plural. Vikingur did not imply any particular ethnicity, and it was a fairly neutral term. I usually think it was, I don't know what they mean by particular ethnicity. It basically meant, well, the Vikingur term was used primarily for European, fair-skinned, fair-haired warriors as well. I know it's also used in Scotland, used in Ireland, obviously used in England as well, Daneland, Norway, Sweden, Finland. So all of them use that term Vikingur. I don't really think anybody in sub-Sahara African or Middle Eastern will use the term Vikingur, but I could be wrong. Produce evidence. I have not seen it. Anyways, moving forward. Which could be used of one's own group or another group. The activity of Viking was like, you know, going seafaring, is not specified further either. So, not 100% sure, but it is used to describe the people that went to go seafaring, activities in groups, adventures. So, yeah, it could be used as a very romantic term. Adventuring. We're going Viking, gents. Okay. The finds include, let's go back to the story. The finds include a rusty iron sword in 2 pieces. Its hilt. Now, there's the part I want to point out. Iron. It wasn't like a super fancy, smashy sword. A rusty iron sword in 2 pieces. Its hilt style enabled archaeologists to date the burial back to late 800s or early 900s during the Viking Age. Joachim Winterville, an archaeologist who works for the local government of Agder County, where relics were found, told. Okay. So other artifacts found in the grave include a long spear designed to be used on horseback. There you go. Hence the mounted warrior, called a lance. Shocking. Glass beads and a belt buckle gilded with gold. So he was a successful warrior, and a bronze brooch. Neither human nor animal remains have yet been discovered there. And that's what I was kind of saying. It seems like maybe it was taken from somewhere and moved somewhere else. Now, burials and burial sites, there is evidence of, and also studies. There's also people that have done articles, have talked about this on much larger YouTube channels. Every time a grave is broken into doesn't necessarily mean that it was by random robbers. Sometimes the descendants of those Vikings or those warriors would come in, or even witches, respected noblewomen, noblemen, would break into their ancestors' grave in order to take items for use during the common day. Obviously, it's very frowned upon today, and also frowned upon during the Christianity era, but that was the fact of the matter. Living people need the things the dead people no longer need. So take it as you will. Now, when you're looking at this sword right here, it's obviously quite decimated. It was just shoved in a bunch of dirt, wasn't properly wrapped up in anything, and although the warrior probably took very good care of it when he was alive, 1,000+ years later, it'd be very unkind. Anyways, 1,100. Well, if it was 900, yeah, 1,000+. Okay, so this is what it looked. Now, this is from the website Grimfrost. No, I am not funded by them, sponsored by them, or anything like that. Although my Thor's hammer is from their website, and they no longer sell this particular model. I've had this for like 8 years or something like that. Okay, so this is probably what the sword looked like. This is all iron, or obviously steel, high carbon steel, but generally this is what it would look like. The leather wrap, the iron. It was a warrior's blade. It wasn't for like something nice, fancy, and smancy. Very similar to this one's all bronze. I mean, not that bronze wasn't used, but very decorative and pretty. This guy's sword was meant for business. Here's another version right here. Now, I don't know whether or not this particular sword was an Oscator. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. All right, Sverf. Okay, I know the Scalby here is more like a short stabbing dagger, or short sword, depending on how you want to look at it, or depending on how tall you are. So that's generally what it looks like when it was one good piece. And then there's a good, oh, there we go, a good little overview of what this guy pulled out. And there's like tons of other smaller relics too. Let's go to this second article. It shows a nice overview. There you go. So you can see a little bit closer. So there are some of the other pieces of the relics that were found. There's the sword right there. Unfortunately, you know, over time, it's like I said earlier, it wasn't well taken care of. It wasn't wrapped up, preserved. It was just shoved in a field somewhere. That's why I think people were kind of taking it from a grave, probably a grave robbery, or a descendant from that ancestor took it, and then for some reason either got killed or lost it or had to quickly bury it just in case, and then unfortunately never got back to grabbing it and picking it up again. So it's very fortunate that this guy happened to find it. Now, let me go back to the guy that was doing all the hard work. Okay, here we go. Glass beagle with gold belt buckle, and here we go. So the gentleman who found it was Oddbjorn Holm Highland. Began digging behind his house and citadel on Friday night when he made the discovery. He said, I was going to dig a lot, just a little bit in the slope behind the house to get some more space between the house and the land. So he's just doing regular old yard work. However, when he began to remove the topsoil, he uncovered an oblong stone. At first, he didn't think anything of it, but as he dug a little deeper, he found something he could not ignore. I looked at it and thought that this looks a lot like a sword blade, Highland said. And then when I released the contents of the digging bucket, the hilt of the sword fell out. Immediately, he stopped digging and waited to call the county municipality. This is probably also why I didn't find about it immediately, because they wanted to get somebody out there and see if there are any other artifacts in the area or skeletal remains, because if you announce that stuff, you're going to have every single opportunist come over there and try to grab all of it up before, you know, the scientists could come and take it. And yeah, I mean, there's probably hundreds, thousands, private collections of very rich and wealthy people and influential people that have artifacts that we are not allowed to see or study because they're tucked away, hidden in a private little collection and just kept up in their upper branches of society. So modern day theft, I guess, or reacquiring lost items that are artifacts is not uncommon. Okay, so then this guy came in here, our boy, and we were able to catalog and get a little look into this. And supposedly, according to this article, Cestadel is an area that has quite a bit of other graves that were discovered. Supposedly there was one found in 1930, which may not sound too recent to you, but in the grand space of time, well, 90 years ago, that's actually not too bad. All right, Outlaws. Hope you all have a great one. My phone's blowing up. We will see you next time.